So today we're going to look at a few things about reverb that I wish I knew when I started making music. We're going to take a close look as to why we might put reverb on a track or why we might bust it out. If you enjoy this video, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you get notified when I release more videos like this. I also stream over a Mixer on Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays, so if you want to watch me make these videos live or if you have any questions for me, that's the place to go. Links are down in the description. Alright, let's get to it. Here are some things I wish I knew when I started making music. Okay, reverb. Reverb's good. Good for you, good for me. It's good for the whole entire family. You might recognize this beat from the last tutorial where I was talking about how we can edit vocal tuning. Let's have a listen to it one more time. I came here like a wrecking ball, never meant to let you in. Instead of using all our force, I guess I should've let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Gorgeous. I'm sure you hear the Miley Cyrus influence. What I used to do with my vocals, and well, pretty much all my vocals, and then with some other instruments as well, but I want to demonstrate on vocals. What I used to do is I used to go to my reverb, let's use the Logic Reverb for the minute, Space Designer, used to always use Space Designer, and I used to go, oh cool, let's get a big long reverb, we'll keep the drive full and we'll mix in the wet here on the track, and by on the track I mean here in the effects plugin. These are all tracks here, and on the Miley Cyrus track I have the Space Reverb on the track. This is something I don't recommend, but I did it for a long time and I'm about to show you why. Let's first see our example of the reverb being used on the track. Okay, so let's listen with the reverb off. Never meant to let you in. Okay, so that's what it sounds like dry, and now let's listen to it with the reverb. Never meant to let you in. Okay, back in the day I would have been like, oh, that's way too reverb, let's turn down the wetness of this. Never meant to let you in. Cool, we're getting a bit of reverb. I think it sounds lovely. Never meant to let you in. Then I learned about predelay. What does predelay mean? Predelay means the drive signal happens and how many milliseconds do you wait until the reverb vocal plays. What I had heard was between 50 and 60 was a max. The longer your predelay is, the more your lead vocal can stand out, and then your reverb comes on afterwards, so the dry is really out in front, which is always a good thing because it makes your vocal stand out. Let's have a listen to that now. Never meant to let you in. Instead of using all our force, I guess I should've let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Cool. A main issue with that is it's quite boomy, and why is that? Is because we're reverbing low frequencies, which is something we never really want. On some reverb plugins, just like the Sound Toys little plate, it actually gives you the option to low cut your vocals, which might solve this problem. Okay, so we'll mute Space Designer and we'll have a listen to the little plate now that we can actually EQ lows out. Let's have a listen to that. Never meant to let you in. Instead of using all our force, I guess I should've let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, I prefer it because we're not doing reverb on low and mid frequencies, which is definitely a no-no. So it sounds a bit better, but we don't have a control on the pre-delay. Bit of an issue. The solve is easy and quick. What we want to do is, if you were like, oh, that's a really nice delay, but it's not working on the track for me, we use a bus. What is a bus? Let's make a new bus just so we can show you here. So we go down to this section down here, go to bus, let's make a new one, 22, okay? What we can do here is, if we put our first effect as an EQ, we can get rid of the lows and we can get rid of some highs. We get rid of the lows because they're just so muddy, they're just so thick that they get in the way of everything else in the mix. Why do we get rid of some highs? It's because we don't want so much sibilance, your S's and T's getting harsh and just exploding. It just gets in the way really, and it's just not so beautiful to listen to. So what I like to do is bring them down, personal taste, and depends on the vocal. 3 to 4K would be what I'd go for. We're going to have our reverb come in just in these frequencies. Cool, so let's close that down and then we put our reverb on top of it. So why not, let's just make the wet full, right? Because we control the volume by here on the bus section here over on the left. We're going to have no dry. In this case, we can cause a pre-delay if you want. Totally up to you. So let's go for the old trick of 50. So let's have a listen to this. Never meant to let you in. Instead of using all our force, I guess I should've let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Cool. Still have the issue of the audio bleeding in through the headphones when I was recording the vocals, so if you hear some background noise, that's what that is. But that's definitely better. It's more controlled. We have the pre-delay, we have it EQ'd, it sits and comes afterwards. Another reason to put reverb over on your buses is that it saves so much CPU usage. What we can do now is for all our tracks, say we had lots of vocals, we've actually loads of vocals here. Cool, really nice. There's 1, 5, 6 vocals there. And if I wanted to put reverb on all of these tracks, I could. We'll open up our mixer by pressing X. So if we went and put reverb on all these tracks, we'd have 6 iterations of whatever reverb we're using. Let's say Space Designer for the minute. As you can imagine, that's not a good thing. Our CPU has to process the information of that reverb 6 times, and then maybe even more depending on how many more vocals you have, or if you have a piano that's using the same reverb. So to solve that issue, what we can do is click all those tracks, go to bus 22. All of a sudden we can mix our reverb. Say we want this guy to be a little bit more reverb, and these guys here we want, oh, no reverb in those guys. And then all of a sudden, instead of having 6 iterations of the little plate or the Space Designer or whatever your reverb is, we only have 1, and every single track is using that 1 reverb to get a reverb sound. So it saves CPU. But there's actually another extra bonus on this. And so now that everyone's using the exact same reverb, it sounds like they're all in the same room. So they're going to be sitting together much nicer. The mix is going to be so much easier to sounding right because everyone's in the same room. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions at all, let me know down in the comments, or you can come over to my streams over on Mixer on Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. So just to recap, why do we bus our reverb? We save CPU. All our instruments and vocals sound like they're in the same room. We've more control over how we can mix our reverb with our lead vocal, the dry with the wet signal. And we can also move things forward and back. And that's by using reverb. The more reverb you have on a track, the further back it sits. And then the drier it is. If it's no reverb at all, it's going to be right in your face. You're going to really hear it. So if we bust things out, we can really have way more control about the depth of how far or close the sound is to you. I've talked at length about why not to use reverb on your tracks, but there are some occasions when we will want to use reverb on our tracks. But it will happen on occasion. So I want to show you some examples of when I would be actively looking to throw reverb on a track as opposed to in a bus. So let's have a quick look. The first instrument or sound I think about when I put reverb on a track is more often than not an impact. I have an impact from Cymatics. Huge, massive. Sometimes I want it to sound just like it's just an explosion in the distance. Okay, so let's try our Space Designer on our track and let's have a listen to this impact now. So we can see there the clarity has been taken away, but it just kind of explodes and it's just this atmosphere of sound, of like just an explosion. So some occasions you might want that. One thing I will say about reverb and throwing it on tracks, make sure we don't have it in the low frequencies more often than not. That's probably the one rule I'd make nearly all the time. Okay, so if we throw a reverb on this vocal, let's see what happens. We'll go Space Designer. Let's turn down our dry. All of a sudden it becomes very atmospheric. And this is all personal preference. If you want something to be really atmospheric and there's not much clarity to it at all, and it's just kind of a vibe, this is the way to do it. Throw your reverb on your track. 90% of the time, I always keep reverb on a bus just because we can control it so much better and all the other aforementioned reasons. But it's great to be able to use it on occasion as a creative tool. So what happens if I want my lead vocal to be extremely reverberated? I want it to be exploding. I want it to be a huge reverb. What am I going to do? I'm going to turn up that reverb huge. I might go to the reverb and say, I want you to be very long. Let's have a huge sized 7-second reverb. Let's have a listen. Instead of using all the force, I guess I should have let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Huge reverb. Okay, cool. So we love the big reverb. It sounds great, but it's just the clarity of our vocals is diminished because there's so much reverb just going over the vocals. But we can solve that. How do we solve that? Sidechain compression. So basically our reverb volume is being turned down and going back up depending if the vocalist is singing or isn't singing. So let's see how to do that. So what we want to do is we want to go onto our bus, our reverb here. You have to press I here to bring up that inspector. Sweet. So sidechain compression. Here we go. We go to our compressor. You guessed it. So we go dynamics, compressor, mono, whatever the track is. Buses are more often than not mono. What we want to do, let's leave this for a minute. We can mess around with our compressors later on. What we want to do is click sidechain. It's an audio input because the Miley Cyrus vocal is an audio track. We're going to find Miley Cyrus. Can't find Miley Cyrus. So we have Miley Cyrus selected. We have sidechain selected. So anytime volume comes in from Miley Cyrus's audio channel, big fan of Miley. So anytime volume comes from the vocal, the reverb is going to be turned down. We can actually solo our reverb here. Let's listen to that. Now, do you hear that? That's pretty crazy. If we turn the threshold down, bring the makeup gain down a little bit. It's nearly hard to hear until the end of the vocal at the very end here. And then the reverb explodes. So this is very useful on tracks where you might have a line and you want the reverb to explode out afterwards, but we don't want the reverb to be masking and covering up the lead vocal. So this is a great technique, sidechain compressing your reverb. Let me just talk you through how the compressor works. Threshold is on -34. So when the singer's decibels reaches -34 in 3 milliseconds because of the attack, the compressor will start working. What will it do when it starts working? Because our ratio is 30:1, for every 30 decibels that hits the compressor, it'll allow 1 through. After it goes back down past the threshold, it will release the compressor 110 milliseconds after that. The compression will stop 110 milliseconds after the volume goes back down under -34 dB. Please click this sidechain button, it's so important. Say it's an instrument you want to affect the sidechain. There's your instruments. Maybe it's a bus. Great, and this sidechain compression is just a world of greatness when you want to have that lovely ethereal feel to a vocal, because the vocal can be very clean because it's very dry, as we talked about earlier. I'm gonna have this crazy reverb really loud. Let's listen to the track. I came in like a wrecking ball, didn't wanna let you in. I take it and I multiply, all we had to live within. I came in like a wrecking ball, never meant to let you in. Instead of using all our force, I guess I should've let you in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, hopefully you learned something from that. If you did, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you get notified when I release more videos like this. Hope you're all keeping well. Best of luck with the beat making. Cheers.